Bill Belichick sat down to prepare his game plan against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there was a ton at stake, even if he didn't care to admit it. Not only was he battling to win the Brady-Belichick debate, but wanted to embarrass the guy who had left him, hold him under 70 yards passing so he wouldn't break the all-time record in Foxborough, and, oh yeah, win the game so the Patriots wouldn't fall to 1-3. It wasn't the magnitude of game planning against Brady. Belichick's prepared for Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, and Drew Brees, but more the fact that none of those guys sat with him in meeting rooms more than 300 different times. Belichick was in Brady's head, but Brady was also in Belichick's head. They each knew what the other would do in every down, distance, and situation because they'd prepared for each of those situations together for the last 20 years. Belichick knew this time, against this offense, he'd need a plan that would exploit Brady's weaknesses and limit his strengths, while also accounting for the incredible talent and depth of the Bucs offense. So here's what he did. Instead of going for the conventional do anything and everything to pressure Brady to get him off his spot, Belichick did what he's done time and time again, play both aggressively and passively. The plan was aggressive in that the Patriots constantly bumped and rerouted the Bucs receivers to throw off the timing and rhythm of each passing play, and was passive in that they only blitzed 8 times and rushed just 11 times. They didn't try to make Brady uncomfortable with pressure, they tried to make him uncomfortable with coverage. And even though they lost, Belichick was successful. Brady completed just 51% of his passes for 6.3 yards per attempt and 0 touchdowns. Yeah, the Patriots fell 19-17, but when watching, it was obvious that Belichick limited Brady in many areas. Before we look at all the technical ways he game planned for the GOAT, I want to tell you guys about this week's sponsor, Magic Spoon, which even Tom Brady himself would probably consider eating. Finally, there's an alternative to the mind-blowingly sugary cereal that's rotting your teeth. Every day waking up, I want something that's that delicious, but getting older, I had to stop eating it to take care of my health. Well, now I can go back to being a kid and continuing to eat the good with Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon tastes exactly like the regular cereal from my childhood, but not only is it not terrible for you, it's super nutritious. It has 0 grams of sugar, 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, plus it's also only 140 calories. My favorite flavor is cocoa, which takes me right back to 1998 with its chocolatey explosion, but really, all their flavors are good, like cookies and cream, cinnamon, and maple waffle. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and disgusting-free. And if you want to start out with a variety pack and get a lot of different flavors to find your favorite, you can use my promo code Rollins at checkout to get $5 off any order, or go to magicspoon.com/Rollins to save $5 today. Alright, Brady, Belichick, let's do it. Belichick knew the number one key to stopping the Bucs offense is to slow down their passing attack and to throw Brady off rhythm, so he disrupted that rhythm by dropping linebackers or safeties to bump receivers from all directions. It was clear he wanted to mitigate explosive plays as much as possible, so he used nickel or dime personnel, which is 5 or more defensive backs exclusively, and didn't play a single down and base defense. These lighter personnel groupings allowed the Bucs to move the ball on the ground to the tune of 119 yards, but they also helped limit Brady to no touchdowns, which had only happened 12 times in the past decade. The Patriots played a lot of man coverage, as they usually do, 54% to be exact, and surprised Brady by dropping defenders right into the area he loves the most, the middle of the field, which forced him to throw outside the numbers. Here's a good example of Belichick's game plan, which came just a few minutes into the first quarter. Even though Brady completes the pass, there are elements that Belichick is setting up for later in the game. When the Bucs go to their empty set, both corners are lined up over receivers and the linebackers on Leonard Fournette, so those are pretty clear pre-snap man coverage indicators for Brady. The Pats play a lot of seemingly basic coverages, like their one deep cover one man, but love adding little wrinkles to confuse offenses. Even though they have 5 defenders on the line of scrimmage, they drop both of the ends out to bump and effectively double both slot receivers. Belichick knows Brady likes his underneath choice routes and that before the snap it'll appear like they're one-on-one, but by clogging up the middle and forcing everything outside, especially on a rainy night, that's a good bet to make things more challenging for Brady. Even though the Patriots hardly blitzed and dropped 8 into coverage 11 times like we mentioned before, Belichick was able to make Brady uncomfortable by pushing the pocket from the inside and getting him to double clutch the ball since his receivers were off their landmarks, which messed up his rhythm. When the Patriots position these 5 on the line and the Bucs have just the 5 in protection, each tackle is forced to set outside, which creates one-on-ones up the middle, which also isolates the Bucs guards who are the weaker spots up front. When quarterbacks see that second-level defender blitzing up the middle, it can alarm them that the defense is bringing in all-out pressure, and if the offensive line and running back aren't on the same page, it leads to unblocked free runners and usually some body blows on the QB. It's hard for any offense to live outside the numbers all game long since those are just generally more challenging throws as they're further away, and Belichick knew forcing Brady to consistently throw wide would take him out of his comfort zone. Here they use that same cover one man call which drops both ends while rushing just 3, plus add an additional low hole zone defender to create a 4-on-2 advantage inside the numbers. The Bucs are running a concept that attacks the middle of the field in arches, which is a shallow route paired with a very quick hitting post from the running back. But by bumping Chris Godwin at the line and stuffing all the extra bodies in the middle, the spacing of arches gets all screwed up and fails to stress the defense. When we take a look at it from the tight angle, watch Brady's eyes and general demeanor. He's staying calm, sure, but he's not completely comfortable as he's trying to sift through all this clutter. Yes, they're only rushing 3, but check how Belichick adds these little tiny wrinkles to his calls to create pressure. When Brady remikes to 53 Kyle Van Noy to slide protection his way, Adrian Phillips knows they're sliding away from him, and even though he's the low hole zone player, he can still help his teammate. Since the line is sliding to Van Noy, that means the left guard and tackle are the only 2 remaining for these 3 defenders, and if Phillips blitzes, the guard and tackle would have to squeeze inside, forcing the guard to set for Phillips, making Matthew Judon free off the edge. When Phillips fakes like he's blitzing, the guard has to set for him, which makes him a half step late to block Christian Barmore, who doesn't hit Brady, but certainly makes him uncomfortable. The key to Belichick's scheme isn't necessarily to play a million different, incredibly complex coverages, but instead to utilize a surprisingly small arsenal of play designs that his defense can master. He wants them to be able to make calls and checks at the line, because who knows better than the guys actually on the field? If you can see the audibles a QB makes, there's nobody in this world watching from the sidelines who can adjust in real time, so Belichick puts that on his players. The Pats position 6 defenders on the line, and the Bucs are running their empty protection, which means they have just their 5 offensive linemen in pass pro. This means that if everybody comes, the Bucs won't be able to protect since they're a man down, so if they do bring everybody, Brady would have to find a hot receiver, which is a quick route that can beat the blitz. When Devin McCourty comes down and shows as a 7th defender, you can see Ryan Jensen pointing to his left, implying the Bucs should slide that way to account for the overload. But Brady, not believing that McCourty is coming and knowing someone has to drop with Fournette, slides the line to the right. But watch the Pats. They now know the protection call and audible into a 4-deep zone coverage knowing that Judon's free off the edge. Van Noy holds the left tackle, then drops into coverage, and Josh Uche sees the line sliding his way and drops right underneath into the hot window just in case Brady targeted the shallow. Belichick wanted to give Brady one look pre-snap and then mess with him post-snap, which is much easier said than done since Brady's seen it all 1,000 times over. But when you're able to disguise what you're doing effectively, it's hard on the quarterback no matter who it is. Pre-snap, Brady's anticipating man coverage since, just like before, the Patriots line up their 2 corners to one side of the field. Even though the tight end Cameron Brate isn't followed across the formation, which is typically a zone tell, the Pats can still man align their safety on the tight end, second safety on the second tight end, and backer for the running back. But when Brady turns his back to the defense to fake the run on play action, the Patriots drop into zone coverage, which flushes him from the pocket, which for him is never a good thing. Still, it's not as if Belichick completely dominated Brady in the return. He played well enough to win and was at times able to decipher what Belichick was trying to do before he actually did it. Similar to game plans in the past, like the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl, early on Belichick showed all-out pressure looks pre-snap and then dropped everybody out to later set up an actual cover 0 pressure. But Brady knows his tricks just a little too well. On 3rd and 9, the Patriots have a pretty ambiguous pre-snap look with everybody at the same depth. They try to drop their safety back a little to look as if it's cover 1 man again, but Brady knows better. Now they bring 5 while still dropping their ends out, but because that immediate middle of the field is vacated, Brady throws the quick in-breaker up the middle to gash the defense. This play is representative of all of Brady's time and experience in the league, since A, he knows what Belichick was thinking and how he was trying to set him up, and B, he was able to stay calm and poised even though the middle of the field was taken away from him the entire game. Belichick planned that he'd get frustrated and not target that area, since for 3 quarters random Patriots defenders kept dropping into that part of the field. But this is what 21 years of experience looks like. This game was ultimately a classic and emblematic of both men's careers. Brady outlasting the defense and taking what was given to him without making the crucial mistake, and Belichick designing an optimal game plan while doing whatever necessary to take away the offense's strengths and make them uncomfortable. He has game planned for the very best to ever do it, but how do you game plan for the one guy who knows you better than anybody else in football? To some, the return might not have been the most exciting game ever, but schematically, it was fascinating. Two of the very best of all time going head-to-head not with their bodies, but with their minds. Between the greatest coach ever and the greatest quarterback ever, who was better on Sunday? The answer is both.